lightly.
Well, that's a warning to others. Be careful. Tread lightly. Tread lightly. Okay, let's do this thing.
Is this just for me to peruse Toronto Maple Leafs baseball history?
You're getting gifts here. Okay.
Am I really?
Hang in there. You're gonna leave with so much swag. You're gonna be.
a huge baseball
Nancy will be
guy.
begging me to have you back next week. Okay. Here we go.
What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get a city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto.
Welcome to episode 1471 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the dome. Join the club and purchase a membership today at mapleleafsbaseball.com. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning Moneris podcast hosted by FOTM Al Grego. And Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mike debut is Steve Pattterson. How's it going, Steve?
Really good, man. Thank you. So many sponsors. This is exciting. There's a lot on the line here.
Well, you think you're excited? Your voice, like just hearing your voice right now in the headphones, I have heard so many episodes of The Debaters on CBC Radio 1. I was always wondering, are you like an AI creature, machine learning, but you're a real guy?
Yeah. No, I'm not AI. I'm RS. Real stupidity. That's what I'm going for.
Authentic. Love it. But really a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man. I love what you do here, and I love a lot of the guests that you've had. I disliked 4, and I'm really happy to be here doing this.
What took this so long? Like, why? Seriously, because I won't dox you, except you're not a long drive, okay? You know,
Right,
we'll get to Dan O'Toole in a minute, but that man drove from somewhere near Orono. I don't know if he was in where he was, in the Kawarthas somewhere. Like, he told me the drive almost killed him, like literally. But you had a short drive. Why is it episode 1471 that you're finally, showing up in the basement here?
I think it's because I was born in 1971 and I wanted there to be synergy. So it's all come together at this one.
That's a good answer. So what is life like on the other side of 50? How is life that side of 50?
You really do forget. I just had, my wife had some people over and had put out a nice little cake with a 5 and a 3. And I'm like, who's that? Who's that for? I stopped counting a while ago. So now I think I'm at the age where I will lie about being older, just so people are like, you look great for 63.
Right.
Yeah.
Because,
67 today.
That's a good move, actually, because you look fantastic for 67.
Thanks,
let me be the first to tell you that. But I ask about the 50 because I'm going to hit it in a couple of months. I'm going to hit 50 because I'm a 74 baby. And, I just we just did an FOTM cast, which is for the real heads out there. So, Steve, I don't know if you'd qualify for that, but you are now an FOTM, so congratulations.
Thank you.
But he just hit 50, and we were talking about, that's just the symbolic, significance of having your age start with a 5. It just feels different than your age starting with a 4. Like, now you're getting old.
It does feel like it should be a milestone. I'll tell you what happened for me to take the sting out of it was during the pandemic. So there was no option to celebrate it. So it was just me and a bird staring at each other.
Well, let me get this out of the way before I read some notes that came in from some people,
right.
That are known to this listenership for sure, including the name I mentioned off the top. But let me just invite you to my 50th birthday party, Steve, because it's going to be at Great Lakes Brewery.
Oh, well, then I'll be there.
June 27. from 6 to 9 p.m. That is the South Etobicoke campus, not the GLB Brew Pub, which is at Queens Quay and Jarvis, where I'm going to be Thursday night to hang out with Joe Bowen because there's a new Holy Mackinac beer from Great Lakes.
I love it. Is it here?
No, because it launches Thursday. Like I gotta,
okay.
And it's like limited release. I don't even know if I can get my mitts on one, but that's Thursday night. But June 27 is TMLX 15. Steve, it would be amazing if Steve Patterson showed up to this event. You'd love it, and you'd get your first beer on the house there, and you would be fed by Palma Pasta. Like you get a full Italian meal on the house, and it would be great to see you.
Well, it sounds pretty amazing. I just have to check with my wife and see what's going on. But if I can make it, I'll be there.
Okay, and there is some beer going home with you today from Great Lakes.
Thank you. I love the Canuck. Yeah, the Flying Canuck.
Yeah, the Canuck Pale Ale.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their staple.
It's not flying, I guess. Maybe I was flying last time I drank it.
Well, if you drink enough, you'll be flying. Yeah. That's the pledge they make. And also, since I mentioned Palma Pasta, I do have a large lasagna in my freezer for you to take home as well.
Oh, my God. Thank you so much.
I told you there'd be swag.
This is already the best interview I've ever done.
We're not even done yet. I'm going to save the rest for later. But Dan O'Toole did write a note when he heard you were coming on. Okay.
Toolsy, yeah.
Which his return to Toronto, Mike, which was only like last month.
Yes.
Was amazing. Like, how many questions do we have about like what the fuck happened there? And then he just answered them all. Like, it was amazing. How do you know Dan?
I know Dan from Jay. So I met Jay first when I was hosting like a Canadian Screen Awards thing back when it was still the Genies or Geminis, I think. Yeah. And Jay was nominated for something, and then he won, and then he showed up on the newscast or sportscast that night with draped in it, carrying the thing. And I've always liked Jay since then. And then, so he had me on in some capacity on the show. And then I just got to know him and Dan. And then
you know what?
Is he calling in?
No, that's a clip of, did you listen to CFNY back in the 80s?
Of course I did.
Okay, so Jim Reed was the midday guy. So after Pete and Geets, you had Jim Reed. He went by the name JR on the air. And he just passed away. And tomorrow, which is sad. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. He left us too soon. He was a big listener of this program too. But tomorrow, and then we'll get back to your Dan O'Toole story. But this is not the CBC, as I mentioned on the top. Okay. But tomorrow,
I said something wrong, and that was the sound.
No, that's actually production error. But I don't know who's in charge here. But so tomorrow, Scott Turner, who was a very popular personality on CFNY, is going to drop by tomorrow morning, and we are going to memorialize his former colleague, the late great Jim Reed, JR. So all the CFNY heads out there, tune in tomorrow. Scott Turner talking about JR. My apologies. I was calling up the live stream. You're looking great. Back to Dan O'Toole.
Well, I went to do, so I did their podcast, Jay and Dan's podcast. Right. And then I was randomly in LA when they were down there with Fox. And so I did their podcast down there, but I thought it was going to be, kind of very, very bare bones, scaled back like down here. And I, for some reason, thought it was at a house. So I showed up but it was on the Fox Studios lot. And I showed up in shorts with no identification. And they had to your Canadian friend is here. Jay, Dan. But then Dan went...
Did they ask you a question like, can you name 3 tragically hip songs? And if you can't, they know you're not his Canadian friend.
The only question they asked is, what kind of grown man travels without identification? I'm like, a Canadian comedian, that's who. But then Dan went the extra mile, literally, and met me on the boardwalk, rode down on a bike and met me on the boardwalk for a drink when he was still drinking.
Right.
And
apparently he drank a lot. So
he did. I heard that.
Past tense.
But I bonded with those guys. I really like them. So.
And he wrote in his note was a great human. I don't know if he's talking about himself or you. It's unclear, but
he might have been confused. Yeah.
One of you is a great human. And a couple more. Indigo Mirage on Twitter wrote, F and A. That's like a clean way to say fucking A. Because you kept.
Well, now you've ruined it because you said the real one.
I know. Well, I'm not on the CBC right now.
Right.
F and A. Again, I exist for puns. He's doing God's work. And this ties into what Al Grego, who is now hosting season 6 of Yes, We Are Open for Moneris. And I'll shout out the new episode later, but because I have another gift for you tied to that. But Al Grego writes, ask Steve if he's got the same pun writer as Ron McLean. So before you talk about puns with me here, I was going to pitch you an idea, like a pun off, because these gentlemen are all FOTMs. Ron Sexsmith, Ron McLean, Hawksley Workman.
I love Hawksley. Yeah.
And now you. What if the 4 of you had a pun off And I was like the moderator of this pun off. Any interest in this idea I just thought of last night?
Here's the difference between Ron Sexsmith in particular is always out there online, and I love Ron, and I love all those guys actually. Ron McLean's, I think, needs some work. I think Ron's are.
He needs your pun writer, which is probably you, right?
It's true. Well, here's the thing. I do have. No, it's not. I have writers. I have writers. Mostly a guy named I don't know. The wizard behind the curtain, Gary Jones, who we call Jonesy, writes a lot of those things, and then I might shape them and edge them, but they're written for me, and then I might try to add one out of every 10. So people think that I speak like that all the time, but can you imagine?
Well, you get credit for these puns as if you wrote them. Sort of like how the essay at the beginning of Q, people thought Gian Gomeshi.
Let's not draw that analogy for the love of God.
I'll give you a different analogy, okay? Somebody maybe you're closer to, because I know you've been on the program a few times. Humble Howard Glassman.
Yeah, I love Humble.
On CFNY used to do the Humble Report. Mm-hmm. The Humble Report. And I would listen in the 90s, and I just assumed Humble Howard, who's a stand-up comic like yourself, he was writing these jokes. And then when I got to know Howard and produced the Humble and Fred show, and he started, giving me the real talk and everything, he disclosed, he subscribed to this service where he'd get a fax with all these jokes written for him. And then he would just sort of do what you do, a little massage shape him a bit. Yeah. But he wasn't writing these jokes. The Humble Report had another person writing it. And I feel just as disappointed to learn you're not writing all these puns on the debaters, etc.
Well, I didn't come here to disappoint you, Mike, but I've already, I get that a lot. So
you're used to it.
Yeah.
And now this blows up my idea for the pun off because you're not writing your own puns.
Yeah, but I can give it a shot. I can I shape them, as I said, but I got to give shout out to Gary Jones for Jonesy for doing those. And
I got to get him on the podcast.
Yeah, please do. He's from the Stargate days. You get a lot of listeners. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Ken Reed. Okay, so we started with big, sports media guy, Dan O'Toole, and now we are at Ken Reed. He's from Sportsnet. He goes, please ask Steve about his love of futuristic trees.
I knew that was going to be the question.
What does that mean?
His brother is a stand-up, Peter Anthony, very funny, and based out in Halifax now. He was in Toronto for a while and was in Calgary for a while, and he brought Ken to see a show. I'd never met Kenny, but I knew him from watching sports all the time. Right. And I did a throwaway joke one night about these statues of trees in downtown Calgary, and I just called them futuristic trees, and that has stuck with
Ken.
with Ken for the entire time he's known me, and he just calls me futuristic trees.
And he probably assumes every bit you do is about futuristic trees, that's your thing. That's the Steve Patterson thing.
Yeah, it's so funny that it was the throwaway line that stuck with him. None of the hours of material I slid over, just the throwaway about futurist. They're lampposts is what they are.
Okay, shout out to FOTM Ken Reed. And here's a woman, you're going to explain this to me because I don't understand this reference either. Uh-oh. It's too inside for me. Judith Butler wrote in, ask for the soap. Does that mean anything to you? I'm hoping it means something to you. Yeah. Otherwise, what is that?
I should have brought soap. Okay, my wife made something called Pattterson, which we're getting. It's been very popular, so we're in the midst of getting more of it now. And she got it for me for my birthday, but then decided to make it into merch. So she designed it all, and it smells like my favorite beer, which I'm not going to name.
Oh, because it's not Great Lakes.
It's not Great Lakes.
Well, you can name it.
My favorite local beer. My favorite local beer is called the Instigator from Indie Ale House. Okay. So they mix that in with eucalyptus and cannabis into some sort of soap, and my wife got it made and kind of mass produced it. And the packaging, I really wish I had one, but we ran out of them. Looks like a pack of cigarettes. Everyone thinks I'm handing them a pack of cigarettes, but it's soap. It's soap, and everyone seems to really be into the soap. It's actually really good.
Wait, did you not think to bring me some soap? I've literally given you.
I know, man. I'm gonna have to send it to you. It's my. Some people do leave behinds. I do forgot to brings. So
now that I know what neighborhood you live in,
it's not that far.
No, I'm literally biking it all the time. I'm like, he lives there. That's not like Orno, okay? He can get his ass over here once in a while. But the soap would be next time you come on to kick out the jams or something, bring me some soap.
I'll have a full package available, I promise.
Okay. And now just to make you feel bad, I'm giving you just a couple more gifts here, okay? Well, firstly, Ridley Funeral Home, the official funeral home of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, by the way. And they start their season May 12 at Christie Pitts. And I'm going to be there, and you should be there too.
Expand.
It's a measuring tape, man.
Oh,
you can measure what you wish.
I love it.
See, if your joke writer was here, you'd have something like, about a measuring joke.
To measure, yeah. Well, no, this looks like a good head measurer because it can go around so you can measure your cranium and see how smart you are.
See how much empty space is.
Size matters.
Size matters. This is what I've heard. Okay. Now, also, because I mentioned Al Grego, we had a great question earlier. There's a wireless speaker behind the beer there. That wireless speaker is yours. That's a Bluetooth speaker. It's right. This is the brown thing.
This.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that QR code will let you subscribe to Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, the award-winning podcast from Moneris that all FOTMs should subscribe to. I took a note on he went out west and he went to Banff and he visited Ken I gotta get this name right. Ken McMurdo, owner of Mountain Chocolates. He started his business in 1989. And it hasn't always been a sweet time for Mountain Chocolates. He was heavily reliant on tourism, and you can imagine something happened recently. This pandemic, and that wasn't good for the Banff tourism. And some other challenges lately involve inflation and supply chain issues. And we're going to find out how is he managing. This is a wonderful conversation. Al Grego with Ken McMurdo from Mountain Chocolates. It is on Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open. So enjoy listening to that on your new wireless speaker.
Thank you very much. I'll listen on the way home, and I'll just measure stuff.
Just measure everything, okay, and report back. I want to know what these measurements are.
Measure everything and report back. Like that.
Measure once, cut twice? No, it's the opposite. Okay. James Edgar says, never stop doing the debaters. And also, some of those puns hurt.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Here's the thing about puns, and I know there's going to be questions. I do get lots of questions about puns. I do have people pitch me puns on flights, which is not.
And
not my favorite
enough
thing.
about Ron Sexsmith.
Ron's great though. He is great at puns. The thing about puns is people are like, "Oh, that was a bad one." You want it to be bad. The goal of a pun is a groan. So if you're getting a groan, you're doing it right, and if you're not, you're not. And that's.
So what's Ron McLean doing wrong?
Well, Ron is a nice man. He just tries to sneak them in at the very, very end because I think in his heart he knows there's not going to be the reaction, and then people
so it's
are
on his way out. Confused. He sneaks it in, and then you have to move on. And there's no time for a reaction. Is that right?
That's right. Or he thinks it's going to get a better reaction than it does, and it's like a comedian that pauses for laughter and there is none. So I love watching Ron, but I could do without the puns. I don't think he does them that much anymore. I don't know.
Well, you're not paying attention. Playoffs start, by the way, did I mention Holy Mackinac Beer? I'll be at Great Lakes Brew Pub on Thursday to hang out with Joe Bowen. Joe Bowen, who I've had many correspondences with. In fact, his son was in this basement last week to record the latest episode of Between Two Fermenters, the official Great Lakes Brewery. It's a great title, podcast. But Joe tells me, I don't do any podcasts. I will not do your podcast until I'm retired. So he's got a hard no podcast rule. He seems very afraid he'll say something that will get him canceled or otherwise.
Right. Well, my only experience with Joe, I think he's great. I'm a Habs fan, so my hockey season is over.
Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, no, my hockey season's over. It never started. But he was actually at a golf tournament that I was doing a show at many, many years ago, and he was doing the auction, and he was driving the bids up, and one of the things on the block was all the Masters champions was a picture of them, and he said, so the bidding was at whatever it was, and then he goes, "You don't understand. You're all business owners. You all have big offices. You bring people into. What you do is you take a picture out from the middle, you put your picture in, and then you let people sit in the office and stare at that, and you go, oh yeah, I won that. I don't talk about it," which I thought was a great bit. I like Joe a lot.
No, Joe's great, and hopefully we hear some many a Holy Mackinac in this upcoming playoff season. So you're a Habs fan, so will you follow the Leafs, or what's your deal with the Leafs?
I mean, I just can't get my heart in it. There's lots of friends of mine that are Leafs fans, but I had a Habs flag up the last time the Leafs and Habs met in the playoffs. I don't know if you remember what happened there, but
93.
Yeah, they were not 93. There was the pandemic year. It was all the Canadian teams.
Actually completely blocked that one out. I thought we were going back to Gilmore.
No, but Leafs were up 3-1, and my neighbors were running by and almost egging my house, and then the Habs came back and won. And
I do have a vague recollection of this. I'll take your word for it, Steve. Okay, I'm looking right now at Wendell Clark.
There he is.
Because I was thinking of the previous playoff match. Well, it never happened. Obviously, we lost to the Kings. It was supposed to happen. It was so lined up that in my mind it happened. Okay, that's how fate it felt in 93. But we obviously never got to play the Habs in 93. That's what Wikipedia tells me anyways. But anyway, I'm here to tell you, Wendell Clark, I'm going to just mention this and then I'll give you this book gift. 'Cause then we'll be done the gift, so we can talk about the debaters
Buddy,
and
this is,
Patter Dad.
This is like Christmas here.
I wore the only like dad shirt I could find in my collection. It's
who's your daddy with
Darth Vader. So
like
I just
that
said
one.
I need a dad shirt. I said I'm going to wear this one.
I like that one. I'm going to get you set up, buddy. You've got me so many things here. I'm going to wrap Patter soap in a dad shirt. Send it back.
I want just boxes of these soaps. I don't want to ever be stinky again. Like
No,
as God is my witness.
Smell drunk and high without actually being drunk and high. I get it.
Sounds like a pre-sobriety Dan O'Toole. That's what that sounds like to me.
Yes.
Okay. Shout out to Dan. Okay. So I'm here to tell you Wendell Clark is going to be at Christie Pitts on May 12th for this aforementioned season the opener for the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. And there's so many interesting people coming out. I've got Paquin coming out. I got Hebsy coming out. I got Peter Gross coming out. I got Stephen Brunt coming from Hamilton.
I love Steven. He's a good
He's going to be there.
Yep.
I'm telling you, there's no ticket. Like, this is free. You can just show up in this and you're there. That's how it works, everyone. You just show up and you're at a baseball game, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Rod Black, of course, is going to be there.
Nice.
His mustache is going to be there.
Well, his mustache too.
He promised he'd grow it back for May 12th. But Wendell Clark's going to be there. And Rick Vive, by the way. Like, this is the other Leafs that'll be there. And who else did I want to shout out who's going to be? Rick Emmett. So Rick Emmett from Triumph is going to make the trek from Burlington, and he's going to be honored before the game. And I'll just tell the FOTMs, I'm working on the national anthem being performed by Biff Naked. So, like, that's in front of Biff now. She's pondering it. Imagine that. Oh, Canada from Biff Naked.
I'd love to see that.
But that book is yours. It is the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. It's a hardcover, a great book. You're gonna need like rent a truck or something to get this stuff home.
There's a lot of stuff.
All right, so now enough from me. Let me hear from Steve Patterson. If you don't mind, because we're going to talk about the debaters, obviously, and we're going to talk about Patter Dad. Is that it? Patter Dad?
Patter Dad, yeah.
Patter Dad. I want to talk about Patter Dad. But I do hope you'll share with us, like, when did you realize you wanted to be in comedy? Like, did you have a moment you realized you were funny? Like, I just want to know the path, maybe the path to the debaters, if you like, go back. Like, give me a little bit, like, was there a day in school where everyone laughed at your joke and you're like, oh, this is what I can do?
Almost the exact opposite. I was in university at York first year.
Okay.
The student council president then was he who shall not be named, who later hosted a radio show. And
did you write those essays?
Oh no, God! But I was always making jokes in residence. I was at Founders College, and then my dorm mates signed me up for comedy night without telling me. So the first night that I went to a show, I just got called out of the audience and went up with completely unprepared and spoke for 5 minutes. So it probably wasn't the greatest set that I've ever had, but it did get, strangely, more laughs than some people who had known they were going up that night. So it gave me the confidence to kind of go back and try it. And eventually I realized I could do it. I was writing advertising for a while, and I realized...
You were like Don Draper wannabe.
Yeah, well, he's less handsome, obviously, but I realized that there's a lot of rejection in advertising, and you can be funny to a point, but not really in advertising because there's too many people to answer to. So right. I just wanted to be funny for the sake of being funny, and that's comedy's the best thing for that. The audience judges you, and they'll laugh or they won't, but then you can recover. And yeah, I like it. It's been a while now.
Now here's the big question, like off the top here. Did you quit
off the top? What the hell have we been doing?
That was was I supposed to record that? That was like the get to know you pre-interview. But did you quit that copywriting job, or were you fired from that copywriting job?
Oh, that's a good question. Wow, you're going back there. Yeah.
I've heard stories.
No, I was definitely. It was almost simultaneous, which is like, we broke up with each other. But my boss at the time, a man named Peter, was like, "You're really, really funny. You should do that all the time." And but he gave me, what the greatest thing was, is he gave me access to the agency, knowing all the agency stuff, knowing that I would not be there in a couple months. So I had the best posters of any beginning
you're printing on their machines,
yeah,
their ink?
Printing on the printing press and getting
perfect.
like senior copywriters to write my ads for shows. So it was a really nice transition. Actually, it was a lot of fun. So I shout out to Pete Tarpey if he's out there, from Taylor Tarpey.
I'm sure he's listening right now.
He could be.
Please, Just for Laughs has been in the news lately for all the wrong reasons, I suppose. I'm curious to know, like, the role of Just for Laughs in your career at this point when you leave the copywriting job in the mid-90s, and what maybe like a word or two what you think of the current state of Just for Laughs.
It's really unfortunate. It's kind of the pinnacle for Canadian comics to aim towards, right? You want to get to Just for Laughs. When you say you do comedy in Canada, people are like, "Oh, have you been on Just for Laughs?" They don't ask, "Oh, have you played the giggle box in their city or something?" And you know, Just for Laughs is a great springboard for Canadian comedians, or was. So it's very sad in that way. But what they kind of didn't do that I think they could have done better is they didn't really get behind Canadian comedians and help launch them into other markets the way that they brought American comedians into here, because they kind of just listened to the American management, and they would bring whoever they wanted. So they'd have a marquee American name and then a bunch of Americans. And the number of Just for Laughs shows that I've seen a Canadian open for an American that they were funnier than is in the high hundreds. So I wish them the best. I hope someone steps in and gives Canadian comics something to aim for again. But the younger generation of comics, the current generation, the online, they really don't need Just for Laughs anymore. They build their own following online,
right?
And they can go, and you don't really need comedy. I don't want to say this. Comedy clubs are still necessary, but people can self-produce shows and fill up rooms pretty easily. So.
I had a gentleman here very recently. His name was Hassan Fills, and he was talking about how, he does this comedy. It's called You Idiot, like a play on the word Eid. Mubarak.
Yep. Yes. Yep. I have seen that now.
And I think he was telling it started where they just had they just any place that can hold people, they book it. And then they promote it themselves, and they sell the tickets, they fill it up. So it is interesting. This Just for Laughs, is it necessary? But back in the 90s, like the late 90s, I'm wondering what role does Just for Laughs play in your career as a comedian? Like, I know you played in Montreal in 1999.
Yeah, it's big. I don't want to belittle that. It was a very.
But it was bigger.
Yeah, obviously. And it was a traditional stepping stone where you went to the festival to meet people from outside of Canada to help you with your career. And most Canadians are looking to meet American agents, which I never was. And I was doing a set about my dad being Irish, and I got booked on an Irish tour. So to me, that was my goal of the whole thing, was to get over to Ireland doing comedy. So I owe them, a debt of gratitude for that. But the amount of American agents that come up and are in your face are, they're just as disgusting and slick as you would think. So it was that part of it I didn't enjoy, obviously. But, the people that can play the game the greatest are the ones that get ahead in comedy, not necessarily the funniest. So that was a good example.
Okay, so you parlayed your way into a tour of Ireland, and then at some point you got to play the not too far away from there, you got to play the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland.
I did, but I didn't do a full run like a lot of comics do. I would fill in and do shows here and there, and it's a really fun festival to be part of, but it's a real grind on comedians because you're self-producing the show. You got to find a place to stay. You've got to rent the room yourself. It's not what I would call a moneymaker for young comedians, and they're hoping to get booked to play around the UK. So as soon as I found out from my Irish agent, what's the goal of this thing, and they said it's to play around the UK, I'm like, I have no desire in that. So I don't want to do the rest of this, but I admire everyone that has a good run at Edinburgh. And as any fringe festival, you see some great shows that some of them later become big things. So it's great.
And it looks good in the bio, right? Sometimes you got to stick these keywords in the bio.
Edinburgh
right?
Fringe, yes, yeah. There was a guy. Sorry, I'm going off.
No, I like it when you do that.
Sorry, buddy.
Please continue.
Do you really?
I like the tangents, and then I try to bring us back. But I do like the tangent.
This one is related. There was a Australian comic who I'd met in Edinburgh, and then I went and played Australia, and he had gotten the best newcomer, and I'm not going to say his name because I can't remember it, but he had gotten best newcomer that year in Edinburgh, and the news had traveled so quickly back to Australia that his whole thing was a very low-key comedy set, but he had jokes in it. But all that the young comics saw was, you just have to be low-key, no energy. That's what people like. And I showed up to headline an amateur night in Australia, and everyone was so indifferent and had no jokes that I got a standing ovation at the end just by process of doing jokes. So I think the lesson was, don't listen to what others are doing. Do something yourself.
Yeah, hoe your own garden. And I don't know. I was going to go into toe your own road.
Hoe your own road. Toe your own hoe.
That can get you canceled very quickly if you mess that up here. Okay, here, let's play a little. There's a show I want to talk to you about. I think the listenership are familiar with it, but let me play a bit of this if you don't mind.
Hey everybody, are you ready to slather on the blather? From Studio 40, it's the Debaters! Now, here's the man who never blithers when he dithers, Steve Patterson. Hey!
Debaters, the show where comedians compete and the audience chooses the champ. I went to a website where you can register to have a star named after you. So I'm proud to announce that Betty White will now be known as Steve Patterson's Hot Nana.
But now I know you didn't write that joke.
All right, I might have written that.
You might have written that
I like Betty White.
I'll bring her down, except to tell people that the debate in this episode is tea versus coffee, and that's kind of a typical kind of fun debate. So tell us how you got the gig as host of the Debaters on CBC Radio.
I think I owe that largely to the Halifax Comedy Festival, because there was a CBC producer named Tom Anico, and he had seen me do stand-up and said, do you want to host a show, like a little pilot?
Yeah.
Which I did out in Halifax and had guests on. Mark Critch was one of my guests. And
it's a big name.
Yep. He wasn't at the time, but he became it. And Mark Forward, my buddy Mark Forward.
Also a big name.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Letterkenny podcast, The Produce Stand.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's great. Him and Jeff too. Anyway, so I was doing that, and the pilot, that pilot didn't get picked up, but Sean Majumder, a few things fell into place. Sean, who's great and is a buddy of mine, was moving to the States and couldn't commit to the show. And Sean himself was like, you should get Pattterson to host it. And the producer said, I just had him post another thing. So they had a few guest hosts, I think, but then as soon as I did it, it kind of stuck, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's been way longer than I thought anything would go. So, but it's still a new, fresh show every time, so I still like doing it.
So 2007, is that when you become the Debaters host, approximately?
It sounds right.
Okay, well, Wikipedia had 2007.
Yeah, I'm at about year 18, so it's pretty close. Yeah, 17, 18.
Okay, and speaking of Wikipedia, I'm here because we have a Wikipedia editor named Rosie Gray T.O. who listens to every episode of Toronto Mic'd and then makes edits based on what, the talent like you clarify.
I love it.
Did you say no to Last Comic Standing?
Yes, that's true.
What's that story? Because I know you qualified for the Canadian finals in Montreal.
Yes.
Why did you say no? What's going on? That's a big deal. Let me hear the story.
Yeah, well, it was pretty simple to me. I had a club gig lined up in Montreal that night, and the people were coming to see me. I'd built a bit of a following, and I lived in Montreal for a while. And I said, I did the tryouts only because they were in Montreal, because I didn't really believe in the process of it. And they got me through, mostly because I told one of the judges they weren't funny, I think is the reason I got through. But they said, yeah, you have to be here now. You're in holding, and then you do the show tonight. And I said, well, I can't be in holding. I have a show here tonight. And they said, choose between that or us. And I chose the local show. So it was a pretty simple answer to me.
Good for you, because there are probably many a comic who would not say no to Last Comic Standing because they're thinking about American TV.
For sure. And I respect that. Maybe it was a boneheaded move on my part, but I'll tell you, the club owner, Ernie Butler, really appreciated me coming to his club and foregoing that. So it was a no-brainer for me at the time. And I think it still is, you got to take those chances to jump through hoops, I guess. And then you got to dance with the one that brought you. The Canadian clubs are the ones that brought me. So.
No, absolutely. Now, question came in from Bob Willett. Excuse me, Bob Willett, better known as Bingo Bob. He used to produce the Humble and Fred show on CFNY back in the day, actually. Yeah. But he's asking, who is the funniest debater, of all the debaters? And I'll just point out that clip I was playing, I did cut it off early because I think we can listen to the whole episode, and then you can do pop-up video. You can talk about, at this point, whatever. But that's Sean Cullen is on that. He's an FOTM. And I find Sean Cullen to be very, very funny. This is my opinion.
Yep.
Who do you think is the funniest debater in the history of that show?
That's impossible. That's like asking who your favorite child is, and you never answer.
Who's your favorite child?
You never answer to their face.
That's my next question, Steve.
No, we have so many great ones, and there's so many different styles. There's a few that no one wants to debate against because they're just...
Who are they?
John Steinberg out of Ottawa.
Okay.
No one wants to debate against him. Very few want to debate against Derek Seguin because he's a favorite as well. And then there's a woman named Yumi Nagashima out of Vancouver that is just her delivery is so disarming that it's almost impossible to win against her. So there's those three, but I could just list reams and reams of people that are great, and some people that make their debut that I am still discovering that really want to do the show and love it and are great at it. So I'm really confident on any night of debaters, you're going to see a great show that's like a one night comedy festival. So I can't, I just did name a few, but I shouldn't, because everyone's great.
Are the the winners predetermined? Of course, there's scripted element to all this. Humble Howard has let me in on the real talk here, right? So they're not improvising their debates. It's all like, typically it's pre-scripted anyway, and then that's fine. But at the end of the show, is it audience applause? Whoever's got the biggest applause is the winner. Is that predetermined, or is that organic?
That's organic, and I shouldn't say I hate that. I hate the pressure of it, because we have gotten letters. They're like, Patterson got it wrong. Why'd he do that?
Well, Humble thinks you got it wrong. Like
Of course
literally,
he does.
Humble. I think he's done it a few times, and he's never won. But he says there was one time he got the bigger applause, and you gave it to the other guy.
What, did he have an applause meter in his pants? I love Humble.
Or was he happy to see you?
I love Humble, but I know, and he gets it. People really do want to win when they're on it, but we don't give them anything. There's no prize money, but they get paid the same. So
No lasagna for the winner?
No, I try to make the best decisions I can. Sometimes I'll pick children in the crowd to be the judges, and they'll pick them. So I'm like, this is on you. So send your letters to Jimmy. But it is, we do not predetermine winners, and we've had a lot of debates that ended up with the person we didn't think would win, or a topic that we didn't think would win. Wins it, and I'm like, this is great. I love it. It's all in the moment, and you never know. You can just have one great line that sticks out, and that's what people vote for.
Right. And sometimes maybe one debater is a more famous person. Do you think that people?
That doesn't always work, though. It should, but we did it at Just for Laughs quite a few years, and we'd have some pretty high-profile American comics, and they didn't like the part where another comic gets to heckle you and the crowd gets to kind of vote against you. So we stopped doing it there, but again, because of American agents not wanting their comics to not look good. But the Canadians that are familiar with the format, or we've had Australians that are really good and British comics that are really good. They love the format. They love getting in a comedy fight. There's no other format for it. So everything on the show, yes, they write their opening arguments, but they've never practiced them before, because it's sort of stand up, but not really. So it's got that fresh, that we don't know if it'll work or not energy.
And is it truly like this conversation we're having now?
This is all scripted.
This is all scripted,
yes.
Obviously. There's a teleprompter over here for those who can't see it.
Oh, that's my line, sir. There is a teleprompter here for those who can't see it.
But what this is, warts and all, because I literally played something by accident for tomorrow's episode. It just started playing. I opened up the tab in the browser and it was like on autoplay. But this is live to tape. So like as you're in the room as it happens with the music and everything. As it happens is another fine program on CBC where
I do love how your mind works. I've loved trying to keep up with it.
Right, but it's all going to be packaged up, and then Dan O'Toole's going to listen in Orno, and he's going to be like, oh, that's how it happened on the floor. Like, there's no edits involved. But when you record an episode of The Debaters, is it all as it unfolded, or will you have redos and edits and stuff for the radio broadcast? Very,
very few. The best part about our show is that we kind of leave things in for the most part. Like, we tape, we want to get 20 minutes for a debate, and we tape like less than 30. So there's not a lot of room for air in there. And we just leave some of the mistakes in because we don't want it to be overly polished. And by the way, just so everyone knows this, I do not hear the debates beforehand. And that's something that they wanted me to do it when I started hosting. I said, I don't want to do that. I'm not an actor.
Because then you have to really fake it. Like, you want to act like you're hearing it for the first time. You don't want to fake it.
Yeah, no, I want to be an audience member, essentially. With
I'm not recording this conversation, but when we have this for real, you're going to hear me faking it when I'm going to authentically react to everything like I'm hearing it for the first time.
I don't have that kind of energy.
You went to Ireland?
Yeah.
My motherland? Okay, shout out to Ireland. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're not answering who's the funniest debater.
I'm
I'm going to ask you a question you might be able to answer as you... Is that coffee or tea, by the way? Because that was the debate I was listening to today.
Oh, yeah? This is... it's coffee from down the road. You can get a nice bakery down the road here.
Okay, beautiful. Because I think Sean Cullen was arguing for... I can't remember. Anyways, I listened to it and I'm like, yeah, this is an enjoyable... Like, I usually listen on the actual terrestrial radio, believe it or not. I have two radios in this house. God. And they're both set to 99.1. So there you go. Okay.
Lovely. Classical.
Yeah, there you go. I'm the last man standing. That's another show completely. Last comic standing. Okay, so Bob won't get his answer. But my question is, Do you, off the top of your head, do you have an idea of what comics have appeared the most times? Because obviously there are some returning comics, but there's probably a comic who's been on the show like 200 times or something. Do you have an idea off the top who is the most frequently appearing debater?
Oh, I don't know who it would be, but that we have a stable of certainly top 5, 10. Derek Seguin, again, is requested a lot. People love Derek. People love Dave Hemstad a lot. Erica Sigurdsson from BC, Nikki Payne from out east, Charlie Demers, Ivan Decker from out west. So we've got those kind of names, and then we've got some new ones coming up in the stable that are doing more and more debates for us. And it's something that the comedians want to do. They have fun doing it, and we're proud that we've kind of introduced some comedians to the rest of Canada because they don't travel that much, like Patrick Ledwell out of PEI or Jen Hamilton from up north. So, we're proud that we get to introduce sometimes new comedians to people for the first time, and it's So I don't know if that answered the question.
No, you dropped a bunch of names that we're on frequently. I feel like that qualifies.
It'll be better when we do this for real.
By the way, I feel like I should broker a deal. I can arrange for the winners of these debaters to get at least a wireless speaker from Moneris. Like, maybe we talk afterwards. Right? Like, enough is enough. You win the debate on the debaters, and you don't get any like parting gifts. That doesn't sound right to me.
Well, we do pay them to appear on the show.
Okay, now we're learning some stuff here. Right. How much money do I get for being on the debaters next Sunday?
Something called favored nations. It's the same amount for everyone.
Okay, so that's a great point. I was upset they weren't getting any fresh craft beer, but you can take your money and buy fresh craft beer. Right. It's like Homer Simpson. It's like you can buy products and services with this money. Okay. Television.
Yes.
Drug of the Nation. That's a song, I think. Okay, tell me about why did the debaters not work on television when this was attempted in 2011? Because you'd think the debaters would work on television.
Yeah. I think they tried to TV it up, and they had some interesting ideas that even the show creator, Richard Sy, didn't agree with. And it was one of those things where it was being done almost as a fill-in for a hockey strike or something. So we taped a whole bunch of them at a time.
Okay.
And had it been a weekly thing where we could have been debating, timely current things, I think it would have worked well. I think that they needed to just let the show be the show and involve the audience as we do on the radio tapings. And they decided, nope, we're not going to show the audience at all. We're just going to have people show up in the middle of the day. There's certain people that show up to a radio taping in the middle of the day, and they're not always the ones you'd want. And, all they really had to do was kind of get out of the way and capture the show. And they did not do that. So we're thankful that we can still do the show the way it is. And everyone that comes to a taping, I think, is pleasantly surprised usually at the night out that it is.
Well, can't we take another run at this and just do it the way like when you would watch the Howard Stern show on TV?
That's right.
And it was just the camera in the room, and you're just, or Bob McCowan, you'd watch primetime sports or whatever.
Right.
And it was just a camera in the room. Right now, no one's watching, so it's not quite the same thing, okay? But there's a camera in the room, and if people choose to watch this episode record, they can, but there's no production, as you can attest to. There's no production values. This is not a television show. This is an audio presentation, but we have cameras in the room. Why don't we take another run at this, the debaters on TV?
It's a great idea. And, I will talk to people at CBC about
these cameras are not that expensive. And you can we'll stream it on Gem, okay? TV's, that word is a little scary sometimes. Let's stream the debaters on
Right,
Gem.
so make it online, yes.
Right.
I look.
You in?
We would love to.
I'll do it for you.
Yeah, it's pretty
You don't have
easy.
to tell the CBC.
I don't think we have to change that much. Our producer, we do have recently now started videotaping the shows again, not for a TV thing, just videotaping them. And it's,
and literally videotaping, right? Like you guys.
Videotape. Yeah. No, it's used. It's like and then we play them on a projector. We showed them.
It's you record over like tapes that had like the Friendly Giant on it.
That's right. Yeah. And they'll be in the archives immediately before they've even aired. But, we've started to do stuff online, and it's interesting. It's a whole new audience that, it's funny to me because a lot of people are like, younger people are like, how have I not heard of this show? I'm like, well,
it's the radio.
I don't know, but it's been on for a while. But there's so many people have grown up with the show, which I'm proud of. We've had people who were dragged along with their parents when they were 7 or 8, and now they're in their late 20s, and they're fans of the show. So we've single-handedly brought down CBC's demographic, I'd like to think, by about 40 or 50 years.
Well, good for you. I would think that, not every household was a CBC radio household, right? There are many from C to C here, of course. I happen to be a guy who always enjoyed CBC radio, and so you can't avoid the debaters if you're listening to enough CBC radio, and then you're gonna, typically you'll like what you hear and you'll enjoy the show. Who's this Steve Patterson guy? How do I go to Patterdad? We'll get to that in a minute. But I would think if you grew up, I don't know, a CFRB household or whatever,
right.
You're like, what is this liberal propaganda I'm hearing here?
Yeah, I can see it. I think I won't say the number one comment I've heard, but because it streams online and it's its own thing, people are like, "Oh, we don't listen to CBC at all, but we love your show." I'm like,
and then you're like,
thanks.
I have a fun fact for you.
Thanks. Yeah.
You're listening to
CBC. We fooled you.
It's like, I don't want. We won't get into that because I'm sure that there's some nervous energy in the CBC universe that the next prime minister is not as big a fan as some of us are.
I do every show of ours like it's our last. I really do. It's
I have secondhand. I've never worked for the CBC. I mean, I do enjoy listening to it. So there's that selfish part that I don't want it to be defunded. But I have like secondhand anxiety that because I only get one vote. This is a fun fact, and I live in Toronto, which. The next prime minister won't need seats from Toronto. You live in Toronto as well. He won't actually need us, right? No. So Harper didn't need us, and this next prime minister won't need us. But he has pledged to defund the CBC, sure. And I have anxiety over it. Like I try not to think on it too much, and I hope for the best. But I do have anxiety around it.
Yeah, I think he'll probably, if it just is still going, there'll be a show called The Agreeers. It'll be a very different show, and there won't be a lot of what you would call humor.
Right, like why the COVID vaccine is not good for you.
Yeah, okay. Why is it good? Is it not good, or is it super not good? Those
right. What degree of evil is this? Okay. By the way, there was a show on CTV called It's Been Canceled, actually. Much like your TV show. But the show is called The Debate.
Yes.
And it was like, I was on it once. It's like literally my only national television appearance was, and I actually agreed to be on this show called The Debate, which was on CTV News Channel, whatever that's called today.
Yep.
I agreed to be on it because they told me in the conversation, they said I could go to 299 Queen Street and do it there. And I have such fond memories of that building from watching Much Music and City TV growing up. I'm like, I want to be at 299 to do something. Like I've never in my life been at 299 to do any TV stuff. So I agreed to be on the debate against Reshmi Nair, who's an FOT analyst.
I like Reshmi.
Yeah, I like her too. Also worked at the CBC at some point.
Yep.
And I was going to debate her on some time-sensitive stuff. So unlike tea versus coffee, which, where I could write more jokes maybe. This is like real new stuff. So anyway, long story short is at the very, almost last minute, I was going to bike to 299 and do this thing. They told me there was nobody there to accommodate me and I would have to do it through FaceTime. Like this was and at this point I'm like, I honestly would not have agreed to do the show if it was going to be on Face. I'm just telling you, Steve, because it's the home of real talk. But I did the show and I realized, this is like the debaters if it wasn't funny.
Yeah. Oops, sorry.
That's
hit
okay.
my knee against.
That's okay. I'll send you an invoice.
I did watch a couple of those, and it's tough. I had some friends that were on there.
And it's live, okay? Where you guys are taping, you can edit. So this is live to TV, completely live.
I think you need the energy of being in the same room for a debate.
I know.
I'll sort of.
You know what's worse? Can I tell you? Because I was doing it. I could hear everything. I had no visual of them. So I'm here. It's like a phone call.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard. Yeah.
So I'm like, and again, I was supposed to be at 299 for this, but I'm here. I'm doing it. I can hear, so I can hear when they're doing commercial breaks, and I can hear when the host is setting me up, and I can kind of, not that I have, they're lucky. I'm so good at podcasting. I can do this on the fly, and I did try to do some jokes, and I think it turned out fine. But the fact I couldn't see them and I could only hear them,
terrible.
It was not fun. And they asked me the next day. I think they wrote. I got a note from a producer that said, "You were great. We'd love to have you back." And I wrote, yes, I will come back, but my condition remains. I want to do this at 299 Queen Street.
In the same room as the person.
Needless to say, this is now a canceled show, but they could not accommodate me. I don't think anyone ever did it at 299. Maybe the host.
No, and I don't even know that the host did. And it's, look, I feel for everyone in the latest round of media layoffs there at that place. It's really tough to get quality content of any sort. Journalism or comedy on the main networks now, because I don't know what they're doing, and their numbers are dwindling. So that's too bad. But we're going to keep as many people laughing as we can while we still have a format.
Well, keep on the Patterdad thing, because Pierre Polyev can't take that away from you.
That's right.
That's yours, baby. Okay, we're going to get to Patterdad. Very excited. I will just say the host was great on that debate show. Not Steve Patterson, great, but he was. pretty great. But I think that show existed. It was a 6 p.m. live thing on the news channel, and I think it was like to put on a very inexpensive, not great show because they don't want you watching CTV News Channel at 6. I think they want you to go to the local channel and watch the news. Like I think this was the philosophy of Bell Media. It's like stop watching the news channel because. I was going to say Ken Shaw. I think he's long gone now. But whoever is delivering the CFTO news, I'll name another guy who's not there anymore. But anyway, that's what I think was the logic behind having a crappy, inexpensive. When you're asking Toronto Mike to do it via FaceTime, I don't think you're spending a lot of money on the show. You know what I mean? And I didn't get any parting gifts either.
No, this is already, but the production value of just what you've given me, just this tape measure.
The tape measure is worth more than everything I got from my debate appearance. Okay. Steve Martin.
Yep.
Funny dude. Has good taste in comedy. Just before we get you to current day stuff and patter ball and leave the debaters here, I did read about your Just for Laughs comedy that you actually got some high praise from Steve Martin.
Yeah, that kept me going, to be honest. I was at a point where I was wondering, should I keep doing comedy at this point or should I just try something else? And I was doing Just for Laughs I'm not sure what time it was, which gala. I think I'd done maybe 2 galas before that. And Howie Mandel was one of the hosts, and that was, it was okay. And then the second time I did it, it was a host that wasn't really a comedian. I can't remember. And then I got on the Steve Martin Gala, and it was in 2010 or 2011. And I really wanted to do a good job on that show. So I put, a lot of work in and got to practice it, and we weren't even sure if we were going to get to meet Steve Martin because he's in a different place backstage than everyone else, but he called me over and I got to chat with him after.
Wow,
and
that's like Johnny Carson calling over the stand-up.
It is, and I just his comment was if I knew he said on stage was if I'd known he was going to be that good, I would have canceled him, which is what you want to hear from Steve Martin. So that was a huge highlight for me.
Amazing. And speaking of cancel, there's a fun comment on the live stream, live.torontomike.com.
Okay.
Jeremy Hopkin goes, I now want a CBC show called It's Being Cancelled. This will be the next project.
The timing is right. Yep.
Love the Steve Martin Gala story here. Quick shout out that you have been nominated for many awards, but one I'm going to focus on is you won Best Series Writing at the Canadian Comedy Awards. Did you?
Did I?
Did you? I think you did. I don't know. I got that somewhere.
No.
You didn't?
No, I'm gonna tell. What is it? Which series is it? I'll tell you what happened.
All right. The series you'll tell me in a moment, but I'm going to read a question that came in from the host of this series, the star of this series. Okay.
Yes.
FOTM John Doerr wrote in from Juneau, Alaska. I once asked him. This came up in a recent episode. Do you keep your Juno in Juneau? That was my question.
Lovely.
I think that's worthy of the debaters. Okay. Ask Steve Patterson. This is John Doerr talking. Who I think is very funny, by the way.
I love John.
Well, you better hear. He's going to ask Steve Patterson why he didn't silence his cell phone when we were on a very somber tour of the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam in 2006.
That's a pretty deep cut, but I was sent to do shows for, I'd say our troops, but it was a military station that was in no danger. Well,
in Amsterdam, they were probably getting high.
Yeah, it's true. They were there to guard marijuana, probably. So it was John and I and another very funny comedian named James Cunningham, who I think was there to make sure we got to the gig. James is funny, but we knew he wasn't going to stray too far. John and I, partook in most things that Amsterdam has to offer. So we were, we had some champignon, and then we went to a weird Dutch improv show, and then we ended up at a local bar that had lights from the airplane hangar go up every time a song ended. So it was a fun evening. But then I guess it was the afternoon or the next day, John and I decided to go to the Anne Frank Museum, as you would, and it was the days of like flip phones, and so
Motorola.
It was right at the part of the tour, and then they discovered the hidden wall, and the Nazis came up, and my phone goes off in the dumbest ringtone, ding 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 ding.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Even John Doerr, who will go along with most things, and is one of the funniest.
It was a bridge too
people.
far.
He just looked at me and shook his head, and so I knew it had gone too. And then I could only think to say, I guess it's a good thing she didn't have one of these, and no one liked it.
Which is a great line, but completely inappropriate for that venue at that moment.
Yeah, just the wrong time. But only John could bring that up because he's the only one that knows that.
Well, it's funny, and I just did some further research because I have a crack research staff. It turns out, okay, you did not win the award I was giving you credit for. You have won. I just want to give you credit. You have won for Best Male Stand-Up at the Canadian Comedy Awards in 2011. Like, that happened. And you won Best Male Stand-Up in 2013.
Yes,
so you have won.
Those things
But
happened.
in 2008, Steve Patterson won for Best Series Writing for the John Doerr Show at the Canadian Comedy Awards. And that Steve Patterson is actually a different human being than the Steve Patterson I'm speaking to right now.
That's right. That's Steve Dillon, he goes by now. His real name is Steve Patterson, but he got into comedy after I did, and then he would show up at gigs, and people would look at him like, you're not Steve Patterson. And he changed his name because of the confusion it was causing, and I wasn't going to change mine at that point. And I love Steve, but he wrote on the John Doerr Show. So when you said John Doerr wrote in, I thought he was going to say, ask him about writing for my show.
Well, it's too funny that another Steve Patterson won for the John Doerr Show, and John Doerr had this experience with you in Amsterdam. Like, it is it just reminds you how small the Canadian comedy landscape is.
It really is. And I lived in an apartment a long time ago when I first came to Toronto. And then it turned out just through, of all the apartments there could be in Toronto that Pete Zedlacker, my buddy, another great Canadian comedian, had lived there before me because I got his mail one day. In the exact same apartment.
Okay, on this note, I don't know how this happens, but I produce a show for Donovan Bailey, who ran the 100 meter in 9.84. Yep. This is in 1996. You might remember he won gold.
I fully remember that. Yep.
I'd be worried if you didn't remember that. Okay, so 9.84, okay? And let's just take aside disqualifications and drugs and everything. Let's move that to the side, because Donovan, by the way, who never got caught using anything and always was clean, and I've had 100 conversations with him. He's always run clean. Okay, so Donovan, 9.84, wins gold. It was the world record at the time, 1996. Next week, Donovan will not be the fastest human in my basement. So Donovan comes over, we do a show, but next week, I have a gentleman in the basement who was clocked going 9.79 in the 100 meters. Like, this is like this little, I just want to go back in time, Steve, and tell young Mike that, okay, one day, that guy who won gold, you watched win gold in Atlanta, he will be hanging out with you in your basement. But that same week, the guy you watched win gold in Seoul, Korea in 1988, let's ignore what happens a couple of days later, okay, Mr. Patterson? Don't let the facts get in the way of a great story. He did get clocked at 9.79, which was the world record. Then they stripped it from him for using steroids. We all remember. Ben Johnson is in this basement next Monday.
Ben in the house. Nice.
But Ben's in the house, and Donovan's not at the same time. I don't think they get along, to be honest. But Ben and Donovan, I think Donovan doesn't want that taint on him, right? Like, get that stink off me. Okay, so Donovan, Ben are both visiting me to hang out in this basement next week. I just think that's almost as big a mind blow as the fact that Steve Patterson from the Debaters is here right now.
They are faster than me. I'll give them that, but I think I can be funnier. But Donovan's, I've heard him. He's a very engaging guy.
Yeah, and he's going to be doing some work for CBC.
Is he really? At the Olympics? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and his podcast is called Donovan Bailey Running Things, and there's a lot of track talk, and Jason Portwanda was his co-host, and it's very good, so people should subscribe to that. What is Patter Dad?
Can I just say, it's like watching a virtuoso paint all the information you get across and then come back to a question, because I just feel like I'm listening to the episode. I forget that I'm supposed to be participating in it, but it's brilliant.
The magic of the headphones.
What is Patter Dad? Well, my book was called Dad Up. I wanted to call it Patter Dad, but then the publishers were like, let's call it something different. So I called the show Patter Dad because I'm sort of done being a Patterson. I'm Patter Dad now.
How many kids do you have?
2 girls. 9 and 4. I had them late in life, so they're keeping me energetic.
Okay, firstly, you only have a couple of years on me.
Okay.
I have an 8-year-old.
Okay.
So late
know what
in
I'm
life.
talking about.
It's not Ben Murgy late. You know what I mean? Or you know what? Breslin late.
I was going to say Pacino. I was going to aim even higher, but yes.
I'm only talking about people who've been in the basement.
Right,
okay?
right.
Okay, but you're not that old. I'm just here
Thanks,
to tell
buddy.
you. Okay?
That's what
you said you were 67. I thought that was a joke.
My next book is going to be I'm Not That Old, and then I'll die at the end of it of natural causes. But yes, Dad Up was the book Have I got that right? Yes. And Patter Dad is the show.
You're checking your notes?
That's how we're doing it. I just looked at my hands up some crib notes there.
Because
But
Patter Dad is something that, someone listening could buy a ticket and see Patter Dad.
they could.
And CBC gets none of that money, right?
They don't get any of it.
I just want to make that clear.
Unless it's a CBC co-production.
Does Pierre Poilievre see a penny?
No, he doesn't. That's a good point. But in some of the markets I'm playing, they'd like it to be fully funded by him. So sure. But yeah, the next, I think we have it at Regina actually. Next, I'm gonna break this story for you on this podcast. Breaking story.
So a stinger or something? No, just
no.
give me the story.
The reason that I wanted to start this particular tour of this show in Regina was because this is where our oldest daughter Scarlett started her life, not knowing it. My wife and I had a show at the Grey Cup 2013. And it was in Regina, and Saskatchewan was in it. So literally the biggest party in Canada.
Right.
And they won. The riders won that cup handily. And my wife and I celebrated like everyone does. And then I had to fly off to Arizona to do a show the next day. And then Nancy told me she was pregnant. And after I realized, the baby doesn't look like any of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, then we celebrated. So it's a kind of a full circle moment to come back and do my full show about dadding in Regina.
You got vagina in Regina.
Come on! I didn't want to say it, but
that's
is a
too
good
easy,
rhyme.
right? I'll fix that in post. It may be the first edit in the history of the podcast.
That is a good rhyme. I often say that town is too close to the other word. They should have named it Runt, which doesn't help. Yeah.
Okay, but those jokes, like with the Patter Dad jokes, they're going to be like for grandma, right?
Listen, here's the
How
thing.
risque does it get in Patter Dad?
Here's the thing. This is I'm on a course. I'm on a mission with this particular show. Is everyone hears the term dad jokes and they think they're bad jokes. They think they're puns, which again, puns aren't necessarily bad jokes. They're intentionally bad, and then they become good again.
Groaners.
But dads can be funny, and these jokes I like to think are pretty funny, and a lot of it's written on real material from my kids, and then I just kind of add on to it. So I'm out to prove that dad jokes can be funny. Just because I'm a dad doesn't mean I can't be funny anymore. And this show is a lot about family life, but then there's also stuff about just being an old dad to new kids and everything that's going through, and I still get to do stuff about what's going on at the time. So the show is never quite the same twice, the live show, but the album's always the same because it's recorded.
Okay, well, that would make sense. Imagine if it's different each time. You could, if you do the streaming, you could do that, right?
That's
you
true.
Could just patch it. I know that's a new thing now. When an album dropped in our days, Steve, that album was fixed. That's the album. But nowadays, like I hear about patches, like literally it's like a software patch. So it's like, who will I pick on? Let's say Jay-Z drops an album or whatever, and he's added a new verse to this one, or he's changed this one there. And in real time, these patches are applied to the stream. So it's like a living, breathing organ. Isn't that interesting? You could have jokes that are very time sensitive. You could be, I heard Donald Trump fell asleep in court last night or whatever. Yesterday. You could have evergreen content with patches.
Well, I'm going to talk to my people at Comedy Records about that. Because
Steve Patterson, you could literally
Steve
Steve
Patterson. I could become a new thing. I could insert myself into other comedians' jokes. I like that.
That's how you get Gen Z, man. You can't just rely on these Gen Xers.
I'm
and
already
boomers.
going Gen AA. I'm already on to the next generation. The tiny batteries of humans.
Where can we find out? Like when you said the shows are coming up for Patter Dad, are there any GTA shows coming up? Like, where do you want to send us to?
Not yet.
Find out?
GTA will be in early 2020, whatever the next year from this one is. Thank you. But I'm going to go out west. Like west, like Vancouver Island, I'll be by
real west.
by the end of the year.
Not like El Grego West or even Banff.
real west. So yeah, the dates are coming up now. We're just kind of putting them in for the rest of this year, and then early 2025, right? The next year, yes.
Correct.
We'll come closer to.
Do you know where you are right now, Mr. Patterson?
Not always, but you're so capable that I don't have to. I'm in a basement with a weird goalie mask. What could go wrong?
You're safe here. You just blink and SOS code in the camera here. I have a song I'm going to play.
Of course.
And I have a question that came in from Glenn, which I think is potentially very interesting. But just before I ask the question and then close with the song, I am going to let you know about a podcast. See, this is tax season, right? So this is, I'm sure you know, in the Patterson household, it's, taxes are due at the end of the month. There's a great podcast from Raymond James Canada called The Advantaged Investor. And whether you manage your own financial investments or you have a person who does that for you, you get great insight, great advice. I know I learned a lot about the mix of RESPs and RRSPs and TFSAs. All this good info is in the Advantaged Investor podcast from Raymond James Canada, hosted by Chris Cooksey. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And Mr. Patterson, I feel like you've got a drawer full of old cables, old electronics, old devices, maybe multiple drawers. Is that possible?
Yeah, the junk drawer, I mean, it's certainly been overtaken. Absolutely.
Everyone's got the junk drawer, but the electronics should not be thrown in the garbage when it's time for spring cleaning. You should go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, and then you put in your postal code, and it's like, hey, there's a place down the street from you, a depot we've accredited, where you can drop that off and have it properly recycled so the chemicals do not end up in our landfill. That's yet another assignment for you, Mr. Patterson.
I love that. I'm actually going to do that because we used to just take it into Staples, but now that's for getting your license.
Don't be so surprised you learned something on your Toronto Mike debut here, okay?
Learning
Patter
a lot.
You're going to learn about the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. You're going to change your favorite beer to Great Lakes Brewery.
Yep. I'm going to measure a dead thing.
What are you measuring over there? It's a casket?
It's a measuring. It's live or dead. I'm going to
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, okay?
Shout out.
Okay, the question before I get to the music, and then we're going to take the photo by the Toronto Tree. Dave Thomas called it the Toronto Tree, and I'm actually considering interviewing the Toronto Tree. That'll be explained later with FOTM Jesse Hirsch.
Can I wear the mask?
I could let you wear the mask.
Thank you.
Glenn writes in. Okay. So take this in, because I don't know exactly what it all means, but you might know, and I think it's a fair question. Glenn says, Mike, can you ask Steve why Canadian comedians haven't come out against the online harms bill? They've been awfully quiet on Twitter. Does he think the legislation will affect comedy in Canada? So I know I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm not editing this. So if you look dumb, that's on you. Do you have any insight, any ability to comment on the online harms bill?
No, and I wasn't sure if I saw that online, and I wasn't sure if that
and you still didn't Google it.
I still didn't look at it. No, I feel like I'm not qualified enough to comment, but if it's a serious thing, I'll look into it.
But even though you knew, it sounds like you knew days ago that question was asked on Twitter.
How did I fight the ability to look at it?
You must have known I'd ask it. Didn't you want to sound smart? Really instantly?
I think there's enough people out there that want to sound smart but are actually dumb. So I'm just gonna stick it in the middle, make things funny where I can.
That's your thing.
That's my thing. I would like to do more research about that if it's a real thing.
So Glenn, I apologize on behalf of my guest here today. In the return visit, when I get my soap, we're going to discuss the Online Harms Act. It sounds serious to me.
It does sound serious, and let me look into it. But I'm sorry, wasn't prepared for this one.
Even though you had multiple days heads up.
Listen, I have multiple children. That's the issue.
I have 4 children. Okay, I'm here, ready to go here.
I'm more concerned about the at-home harms right now.
That's right. All right, here's a song.
Okay.
A lot of comics like to this is how they do a show. They start kind of slow. They build and build and build to a big finish. And that's certainly one way to do it. I like to bring it down a bit in the middle. I think that we've all been through a lot of stuff. It's been a very serious time. And as much as I want to do a great comedy show for you guys, I think it's important to just realize where we are, right in the middle of it. So I'm bringing it down a bit, and I'm going to do a song that I did about loss. Someone that I lost that was very important to me in the last few years. And after the song, because it is a bit heavy-hitting, we're going to have a video from a professional counselor. And then we're going to get back into the show. All right? Hope you enjoy it, especially the couples with their hands in each other's crotches. This is a good time for you to really let loose. Hit it, please, Donovan. The first time I saw you, I remember so clear. You were right there with me when I looked in the mirror. So strong and so solid, with a confident flair. I never imagined one day you'd not be there. And we went through so much the ups and the downs, the smiles of elation, the tears and the frowns. You were there for my proposal. I arranged it just so. If you hadn't been with me, she might well have said no. But she said yes, and you moved in with us, and we lived in bliss. We were blessed because she touched you whenever we'd kiss. And as long as we were together, there's no way we'd miss. But then life took a cruel turn, as great men before me had already learned. As much as I wanted you to make it through, there was nothing that I could do. You were my hairline at the top of my face. Now you're disappearing without a trace. I wish I could say something that would make you stay. Instead I'll wear this jaunty hat every day. You were my hairline, the top of my face. You're disappearing without a trace. Wish I could say something that would make you stay.
It's on your back now.
Instead I'll wear this jaunty hat every day.
You're not fooling anyone with that.
But I'll still wear this fucking hat every day.
Very good, Mr. Patterson. Okay, this song is called "You Were My" because you don't want to give the punchline away in the title of the song.
That's
Very
right.
clever,
That's
and
right.
it's a great reveal. And you I do guess it on the way. Like I'm thinking, where is this going? And I want you to know I did guess it correctly.
Oh, you did? Okay.
But still, packs a great punch. Very funny. So, what is that from? And then I'm going to kind of look at your hair, if you don't mind, just for a moment here.
Look, I'm losing it at the front, but it's still around the sides. I got the Padre.
Like,
you have lovely hair.
Well, this might be. So I do have. Thank you,
You
Steve
do.
Patterson.
It's lustrous. It's lustrous.
I have an appointment with an FOTM Andy the barber for 5 o'clock today.
All right.
I've decided.
Can I take your clippings? Is that where this is going?
Would you like my clippings? Because
Maybe.
I am going to get a haircut today because I feel like it's. This is.
It's bushy now.
Yeah, well, you know what I did last night. I had a shower last night.
Congratulations.
We're working blue here. No. But I put it up and I tied it up.
In a bun.
Because it was kind of like when it's wet, it falls in my eye. I tied it up kind of like in a bun, and then I took out the bun, and then it was doing what it's doing right now. But anyway, today at 5 o'clock, I'm going to cut my hair. So I'm just here to. I know you're like, I wish I could have this problem. Like he's got too much hair. He's got to lose it or whatever. But you are holding on.
We got to try to meet. We got to try to meet in the middle or something. But
have you considered shaving your head?
No, I haven't. But maybe next. But for right now, I'm on a good run with this song and joke. So
yeah, tell me about the song.
This was a very, very organic thing where I always noodle around on the piano. I don't play piano, by the way. That's my buddy, Mark Camilleri from Imagine Sound Studios, and his wife, who always gets the biggest laugh in all my music with some line. So her going, "It's on your back now," was very
good
organic.
line.
Didn't write it, and she did it. And I tell her, I do hour-and-a-half shows. The biggest laugh is your one line in the song. But yeah, no, I just try to be honest about where I'm at now, and having Mark, who tours with the Tenors, true story, he's such a great musician, and I can come in with these dumb, weird ideas to his studio, and he's like, "Yeah, we can do that," and I'm quite proud of that one because a lot of the guys coming to my show, they can identify with that.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. Okay, so you got That's like a musical album people can buy. This is a
That's on the album, Patterdad.
Patterdad.
Yeah, and then
It's all about Patterdad.
yeah.
Smart to be spending some time on Patterdad. They can't take that away from you, like I said. Like, this is your baby, right?
That's
Patterdad.
right. This is my time. God damn it.
Patterdad. So everybody who, Steve Patterson, funny guy, but your live shows, I've heard nothing but great things, and people should find a Patterdad near.
Find a Patterdad near you. Absolutely.
And just on the way out here, the book of letters I didn't know where to send.
Yeah.
This is still available. This is your debut album.
It's my
It's your
debut album in book
novel.
form. Yes. Yeah.
Do you have a spoken? Did you record it like
I do.
audio version?
Yeah, I think that one is out with Audible. My second book, Dad Up, was with Penguin Random, who have their own streaming service. So they're on 2 different streaming services. But I would always write letters in my stand-up, and then there was a agent who's like, "You should put these in a book." I'm like, "Okay, I will." So
The book of letters I didn't know where to send.
yeah, and there'll be a second one before the end of this year.
Before the end of 2024, there's a sequel to that.
That's right.
Is that exclusive?
That isn't exclusive because I just decided now. I don't know if that's even possible, but I think we can do it. Sure.
I can help you out with that. Steve Patterson, you're now in FOTM. You knocked it out of the park in your Toronto Mike debut. I thoroughly enjoyed this chat.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
And I would love to see you June 27. You got that in your notepad there.
I can write it down
and you know
there.
what? You really should bring the entire family to Christie Pitts on May 12 while we're at it for the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
You got lots of orders here. And that brings us to the end of our 1,471st show.
Woohoo!
What should I do for 1,500? Something special, or should I just treat it like a normal episode just to mess up the system?
No, bring in...
Bring in who? Who am I bringing in?
Your 1,500th guest should be your first guest again. Bring it right full circle.
All right, maybe I'll do a monologue. Okay. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. You are Patterballs. Patterballs. How does the CBC feel about that Twitter handle?
Well, they're only finding out now. On all the other social media, I'm Steve Patterson, comedian. But on X, I'm Patterballs.
But they're only realizing this now. That's the kind of
Yeah,
no wonder
check
they're endangered species over there. Come on, get on the ball, everybody. Much love to all who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. That beer is really yours. That's not. Sometimes people at the end of the show, they're like, "Oh, is that for real?" I'm like, "No, it was a show prop. Give it back."
I'm gonna try to shotgun for it once.
And get the Holy Mackinac beer, everybody. It's out, I think, Thursday. So, okay. Palma Pasta, they're going to feed us at TMLX 15. That'll be full when you leave because it's in the freezer. That's
I'll be
what's
full
on you.
shortly after.
RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Raymond James Canada, they have the Advantaged Investor podcast. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team. May 12, everyone, be there with Rod Black's mustache. Moneris, they've got Yes, We Are Open. And, of course, Ridley Funeral Home. See you all tomorrow when Scott Turner drops by. He just retired from radio. We'll talk about why did you retire? Did you have to retire? Did you get retired? We're going to talk about the late, great JR from CFNY. We've got a lot of ground to cover. Why wouldn't CFNY play the Pixies in 1989? There's a whole bunch of stuff to unpack. See you all then.
But I wonder